Jim Longworth, and welcome to a special voter education edition of Triad Today. Over the next half hour, you'll hear from all 7 major party candidates running for Congress in the newly formed 6th District, which includes Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem, all of Guilford, and much of Forsyth. But first, a word from Todd Hall, president of Triad Federal Credit Union, who's helping to bring you this special program.
At Triad Federal Credit Union, we understand the importance of the ballot box in shaping our future. The institutions led by state and local leaders form the foundation of our society. Giving candidates for office a platform to engage with voters on the issues that matter most in our communities is essential to the health of our democracy. We support Triad Today's commitment to voter education because of its importance in the political process. I'm Todd Hall, President and CEO of Triad, and we hope you enjoy this special presentation.
We'll meet the candidates right after this message.
ACC sports fans, you found your home. The Sports Hub at AM 600, AM 920, and the Sports Hub app.
Ed Haynes is an attorney and a former state legislator from Forsyth County. Why are you running for Congress? I want to know, because you've been in the legislature, and I thought, well, maybe Ed's finished with politics.
Yeah.
Then you come back. Why?
I think everybody feels like they're finished until you sit at home a little bit and you see the rancor that's going on in Washington, D.C. And I'm a father. I have 2 little girls, and I really did sit back and think about how the life I wanted them to live growing up. And I saw the open district that we worked so hard for to get established while I was in Raleigh, and I thought it'd be a good time for me to put my name back in the hat. I also felt like I had the most experience at the highest level of state government of any of the candidates that we had in the race at that point. I've actually been able to work across the aisle and cut through the noise and actually get what I call life-saving social justice legislation passed. I think we have the most dynamic slate of legislation in the last 8 years that we were able to pass as a Democrat. And so I wanted to bring that same expertise and experience to Washington, D.C.
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to pick your brain about gerrymandering for a second, because by the luck of the draw or whatever, this district, the newly formed district, is now going to favor a Democrat.
Sure.
That's what it is.
Sure.
That doesn't mean a Democrat will win, but it favors a Democrat. So here's my question. On the good side for you Democrats, it's working.
Yeah.
But gerrymandering is not a good thing either way. So you're in there for the luck of the draw now. What do you do once you get in?
Well, listen, gerrymandering is not a good thing. It's kind of one of the evils of what happens when certain parties get in power, and that can be sometimes Democrat, sometimes Republican. We need fair districting, first and foremost, no question about it. But remember, this district resulted from what the courts termed an intentional disenfranchisement of African American voters and Democrats in general.
Right.
And so the Republicans had this district drawn. I will tell you, they had the district drawn 3 or 4 years ago. They knew it was going to happen if they were caught in this piece, and they were, and so they delivered the district. They were ready to go with it. They delivered the district, and so we just have to move forward and be responsible going forward. Once the census happens, we've got to be responsible.
All right. Once elected to Congress, what will be your priorities that you want to work on? Right. Issues or problems?
Yeah. So right away, we're going to go right back to the same program we had when we were in Raleigh. First of all, creating relationships across the aisle. Second of all, is looking at social justice opportunities, criminal justice reform opportunities, and education. And so in Raleigh, we were able to do a wrongful expunction and exoneration bill, so that if you are exonerated by the state for a crime, you don't walk out with an arrest record. Daryl Hunt in this district went to his grave with an arrest record for a crime he didn't commit. Yeah. We're going to do that. We're going to focus on education. We're going to make sure, nationally speaking, we do the same thing there that we did here in North Carolina, and ensure that poor kids who score really highly on their standardized tests are not subjugated to lower level math and science classes because of their socioeconomic standing. In North Carolina, that's what was happening. More affluent kids with lower scores were taking the place of poor kids. So we're going to do that. We want to look at body camera, and police training to make sure that we have those police community relationships in play. And we want to do it nationally. We have an issue there that we've been working on. It's been getting better. But today in North Carolina, because of legislation that I ran, there are more police officers wearing body cameras today than ever before. Community relationships are better, and there's better accountability.
A few seconds left.
Yes, sir.
What about your background? You've already answered this in part, but very quickly, what about your background and experience will make you effective to break that gridlock when you go up there?
It's the business background. It's the background of working in a major law firm, having my own business, and understanding how to develop relationships and the necessity of doing so early. It's the ability to get things done, and having proven that I can do it, and I have done it at the highest levels.
Well, good luck, sir, and I thank you for dropping by. Ed.
Thank you.
All right. Now, you can visit Ed's website at www.edhainesforcongress.com. Lee Haywood is a businessman from Summerfield and former chairman of the local Republican Party. First question, why are you running for Congress?
Well, I decided it was my time. I've been behind the scenes for the past 10 years or so, helping other candidates and causes. And when my good friend Mark Walker decided to bow out of this race and pursue other avenues, I decided it was my time.
All right, now what are your priorities? I know you're a businessman, but you've already sort of worn two hats. You've been a businessman, you've been a party chair, you've seen it from both perspectives.
I
So
have.
what are your priorities?
Well, I've got 3, maybe 4 top priorities, and I added the 4th one this past week or so. The economy, and most specifically the debt. We have got to take care of our spending problem. It's getting worse each year that goes by. It's at $23 trillion now, and there doesn't seem to be any urgency to bring it down to, or even try to get rid of it.
Right.
Second would be the immigration problem. I think with Trump 100%, we need to finish the wall and totally revamp our immigration policy. Third would be education. We need to totally get the Department of Education out of the state's business, totally get rid of it, and turn that power back to the states to run their own education system. And fourth, we've got to protect our Second Amendment rights. After seeing what's going on in Virginia, that just totally scares me.
Well,
And,
why would it scare you?
well, eventually we're going to go down that slippery slope where they're going to come, I believe, eventually take our guns away from us. And I hate to say it, and I don't want to be alarmist, but you see what's going on up there. It's a little bit scary.
So are you for these Second Amendment resolutions that are like Second Amendment sanctuary cities and things like that?
I am. If nothing else, it bands people together and makes them realize how important the Second Amendment is.
What about your background and experience would make you an effective congressman? Because we all know there are people that say they want to do certain things, they get up there, they can't get them done. They get swallowed up by the gridlock. Good intentions. What do you think?
It's hard. Well, I've been in small business for, like you said, past 37 years. Been on my own, basically, but the past 10 years or so working with the party, I've had to work with other people, get consensus to get things done. And I believe that experience will help me in Congress. Obviously it's a different animal up there. It's war up there.
And you're used to being your own boss, so I mean that would be a big change, right?
It's a big change, absolutely. But I take on hard tasks. I don't, I don't sit back and let things happen. I've always taken on the hard task, and I'm not scared to go up there and start knocking on some heads and doors.
What about, just a few seconds left, what about term limits? For them, against them?
I'm for them, but I don't think there's any will up there to get those done, get term limits implemented. There's a movement called the Convention of States that might be our best bet to get that done, but until somebody gets serious about it, it's so entrenched up there.
Right.
I'm not going to make a promise on that.
Okay.
But when I'm elected, I'll do 2 or 3 terms and get out.
All right. Well, we're going to get out right now. Thanks, Lee, for doing this. You can visit Lee's website at leehaywood.net. Bruce Davis of High Point is a Marine Corps veteran who served several terms on the Guilford County Board of Commissioners. Why, you and I have known each other for a long time. I'm going to ask you this because this is kind of a new approach here. Well, why are you running for Congress? I know you've run for a lot of offices. Why are you running for Congress?
Well, Jim, and thank you for the opportunity to explain to the constituents why I'm running for Congress. First of all, I've served as a county commissioner. I've served on a number of boards in our community, and I've always wanted the opportunity to do more as I work in the political arena.
For a larger area.
Absolutely.
And, of course, this is a brand new area because we used to have at least 2 representatives from this area. Now it's all going to come under one person. What are your priorities in terms of issues and problems that you would want to address when elected?
When elected, one of the main issues that we're faced with is affordable housing, of course. Which ties into poverty as well within our community. We have roughly 15.7% poverty rate in the newly drawn 6th congressional district.
That's right.
So that equates to about 144,000 people who are making less than $24,000 a year, a family of 4. That's larger than High Point. So that is certainly a real big issue in this district. So lifting folks out of poverty, that may be through livable wages, that may be through finding greater opportunities for people in the district.
And the president sort of hinted the other night that I think it was at a rally or a meeting, said that he would now consider cutting back on Social Security and Medicare. Thoughts?
Well, you know, it's Republican thought, as it was said by one Congress member, you want to shrink the size of government to the point that you can drown it in a bathtub.
Yeah.
So that's the same sentiment. That's the direction that they would like to go. But I think people deserve help, those who need help. And of course, there are some who may be gaming the system, but that's not the masses of the people.
Right. Now, let's talk about veterans for just a second, because you are one. Absolutely. And it's always a concern to you about veteran care. How so?
For instance, the other night I was standing outside of my Greensboro office, and a young lady walked by, and she came back again. I knew something was going on, and she stopped. She says, "Hey, I'm a veteran. Can you help me get something to eat?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" You know. And so I did some questioning to make sure she was truly a veteran, and she was pregnant and homeless. And so when you see people who have served this nation with all that they have, some have given life and limb and so on and so forth, out on the street struggling, it pains me, it really does, and we should be taking better care of our veterans.
Let me go to something political rather than substantive. Term limits, for them or against them?
I don't see a necessity for term limits by law. I think the constituents will decide when you need to move on or when there's a better choice available. But personally, as a person, I don't believe in staying anywhere too long, which is why I did 3 terms on the county commissioners after doing 20 years in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a time and place for everything.
Yeah,
so.
and do that, and not wear out your welcome, as the old guy once said.
There you go.
One quick thing before we leave. What about your background and experience will make you an effective congressman?
My background that would make me an effective congressman is the fact that I've been able to work across party lines. When we look at the Carolina Field of Honor, I had to work with the Republicans and Democrats on the Guilford County Board of Commissioners. Then I had to come to Forsyth County and work between that board right here in Forsyth County. And we were able to get that land to build the largest Veterans Memorial outside of Washington, D.C. And there are other instances that I can point to that I've been able to work across the line. And that's what we need in Washington, not the fighting, but working together. Breaking
that gridlock.
Yes.
Bruce, thanks for being here and doing this. And I just want to mention to the folks at home your website. Bruce's website is brucefornc.com. brucefornc.com. Laura Picardo of Pelham is a Global Transaction Services Accounts Payable Analyst at Hanesbrands. All right, I have to ask this. Why are you running?
I'm running for Congress to implement a debt reduction strategy. Of course, we all know we have $23 trillion of debt outstanding, and I want to target those as much as possible. I want to implement a bill to have all government buildings to be ran by renewable energy.
Okay. Now let me pick at you a little bit. Since you're an economics major and everything, I'm sure you got this fleshed out in your mind. What are some things you want to try to bring down the debt? Have you given that any thought? I know it's not a fair question because you're not up there yet in Congress, but what are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about digging through the data. I need to see where are we spending our funds, and are they the best options for us? What is the most efficient way to spend? Like, for instance, on facility services, is there a way we can implement renewable energy so that the solar panels harness the Earth's energy, and then we have free electricity from the solar panels, of course, after we pay off the energy. And then I'll go back and dig and see why are we spending so much on foreign aid.
All right, that's fair enough. Now, what is it about your background and your experience, because I mentioned your economics degree, I mentioned your title, the job that you do at Hanesbrands, what in that makes you or will make you an effective congressperson? Because a lot of times people get up there and say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and they get up there and they can't get it done. You know, they get in the system and it's gridlocked and all this thing. What about your background would make you a good congressperson?
I've learned a lot from my fellow professionals at work, I've learned that a lot of the times we have to improve our communications and not let little things deter us from solving a bigger issue. So keeping the doors open, communicating, always finding out who to reach out to find additional information to solve the problem.
That's good. Now, what about, we didn't rehearse this or anything, I'm just curious, what's your viewpoint on term limits for congresspersons? What do you think?
Yes, we should have term limits, maybe 12 to 14, because we need a Speaker of the House. But I believe that the Speaker of the House and the minority leader should be elected by the people after the general election. Because it shouldn't be the same person over and over. It should be a new voice every single time. That way we have more of a strategy implementation when every single Congress runs.
Right. Now, when you said 12 to 14, you meant 12 to 14 years, so
Yes.
you're, not 12 to 14 terms. I just want to make sure we're straight on that.
12 to 14 years.
Anything else that you want to say while we still have a little bit of time left about your platform and what you'd like to accomplish?
I want to make sure that the taxes don't go up on anybody's 401k or anybody's retirement, their pensions. I want to protect Social Security because people are dependent on these investments, and they're pulling taxes out of our paychecks for the Social Security. It is estimated that around 2035 it's going to be depleted. So it's something that we really need to work on to make sure that no American goes hungry in their old age.
All right. Thanks, Laura. Hey, you can visit Laura's website at www.laurapicardoforhouseofreps.com. Rhonda Fox was a former congressional chief of staff, and she practices law in Greensboro. All right, here's the big question I ask everybody. We'll start out. Why are you running for Congress?
I am running because after working for 6 different women in federal politics and policy, I can tell you that Congress, which we call the people's house, doesn't look like the people. And our everyday issues and communities are being left behind. And I think that that is a grave injustice that we are all facing.
All right, when you're elected, what priorities would you like to work on, issues, problems?
Yeah, number one, I think we've got to get real about fixing our criminal justice system. I think it's leaving way too many folks behind. I am committed and passionate about lowering the cost of education and making that accessible for all. Brother MLK told us that the greatest equalizer is education. Everyone should have access to that. I'm proud to be the only candidate in my race that supports Medicare for all, and I believe in that because we can no longer tolerate a system where one skin tone and zip code determines their outcome.
Yeah, people that say that you can't afford Medicare for all, it makes me a little angry because there's always a way to do what you need to do, right?
Sir, I will tell you that is what I say all up and down the district. It's an issue of priorities. And I ask for voters to look at the candidates in this race and see whose priorities match the needs of the communities. We have the money, we just have to have the priorities.
Yeah, and going back to criminal justice, since you mentioned it, let me just pick your brain on this. As you know, there's now 15 states that have decriminalized marijuana, small amounts of recreational marijuana. In one way or the other, although it's still illegal in larger quantities. Here in North Carolina, even trying to make an attempt for district attorneys to say we're not going to imprison people for having a little bit of marijuana. Would you like to see a federal law passed that covers the whole country on decriminalization?
I certainly would. I stand for that. I am a champion of that. Look, I have been through our broken criminal justice system. I have experienced it firsthand, and what it boils down to is we are processing more crime than our systems can handle. Our system was designed to make us safer. Small amounts of marijuana, cannabis are not making us safer. It's just clogging our system, and we're trampling on people's constitutional rights. Legalizing and decriminalizing marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, is a common sense thing.
Right. What about the term limits, for or against?
Against. The power is in the people. It is not up to any member of Congress to determine who can go to office, when, and how. That's up to the people, and the people will issue their own term limits.
Can the people always do that, though, if they've been gerrymandered to such an extent that maybe they feel disenfranchised?
Can I tell you, I always say to voters, yes, the 6th district is important, and it is imperative that we not just have a Democrat, but that we have the right Democrat. But right now, the most important races that our district is facing is that North Carolina General Assembly. We have got to either take back the state house or the state senate to ensure that we can have independent redistricting commissions.
Final thing before we run out of time, what about your background and your experience would make you an effective Congresswoman?
We have this district right now for 2 years. We need someone that can hit the ground running on day one, that knows how to get to the appropriations room, knows how to get on key committees, has the relationships. I have that. We've got to start driving down resources to deal with our everyday issues. And that is the difference between me and all of my colleagues in this race.
Rhonda, I appreciate you coming.
I appreciate you for having me.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so very much,
All right,
sir.
good to see you. Well, now you can visit Rhonda's website at rhondafox.com. That's rhondafox.com. Kathy Manning is a Greensboro attorney and business owner who has spearheaded campaigns to create jobs and school readiness programs. All right, first question I ask everybody, why are you running?
Well, I took on a tough race in 2018 because I was so deeply worried about the future of this country. And I wish I could say all the issues I was worried about, from healthcare and prescription drug prices to the environment, to gun violence, to women's reproductive rights, to jobs, and high quality education for all our kids. I wish all those things had been solved, but they haven't.
Worse.
Things have actually gotten worse. I agree with you.
You know, the Trump's proposed budget contains cuts in the new budget that's proposed, cuts in Medicaid, cuts in food stamps. He's been vacillating on cuts in Medicare and Social Security, but it looks like that'll be that as well. Give me your thoughts.
And block grants.
Yeah.
I think it is ironic that he gave a State of the Union that was so misleading and made it seem like he was really good for the country. But his budget shows what he is really all about, and it's going to be devastating for people all across this district and all across the country.
I know access to health care is a personal thing for you and your family. Does that mean that you're in favor of Medicare for all?
You know, it's interesting. As you're right, this issue is personal to me because of the fight I had getting the medication my daughter needed when she was diagnosed with a chronic illness. And everywhere I go and tell that story, I have people line up and tell me about the struggles they have paying for their medication. I met a woman just last week, the Golden Corral in Winston-Salem, who told me she had just been diagnosed with an illness that required a special medication her doctor put her on, and she's on Medicare. And yet this medication costs her $2,100 a month. And this woman is on Social Security and a little bit of money she was able to put aside over the years as a public servant. So I see this problem day after day. We worked so hard to get the Affordable Care Act in place, and it got $20 million covered by insurance. It protects people like my daughter with pre-existing conditions.
Right.
I think what we need to be doing is building on that, building on the Affordable Care Act, and I think we need a robust public option, and I would start by allowing people to buy into Medicare at a younger age.
We have a few seconds left, and I got to get this in. What about your background and experience will make you an effective Congresswoman?
I have lived in this district for more than 30 years. I've raised my children here. I have worked as an immigration attorney. I have worked on all kinds of projects to make our community better. As you've listed a lot of them, so I won't detail them, but I love this district and I have worked to make it better. I believe I have a proven track record of leadership, of being able to bring people together to get tough things done. Those are the leadership qualities I want to take to Washington so that I can get things done for the people of this district.
I sure do appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. You can visit Kathy's website at kathymanningfornc.com. That's kathymanningfornc.com. Derwin Montgomery is a former state legislator and former member of the Winston-Salem City Council. It's good to have you here.
Glad to be here with you.
Good to see you. I'm going to ask you to start off the same question I ask everybody. Why are you running?
Well, I am in this race because I believe that at this moment in time, with all we see happening in Washington, D.C., we got to have a voice in the 6th District that has experience fighting for everyday folks. That's who I am. That's who I have been. And I think that once you get to Washington, D.C., your perspective and understanding of everyday people, if you don't have it before you go there, you're not going to learn it when you get there. Yeah.
What are some, let's say you get elected. Now, what are some of the priorities you want to focus on?
Well, there are things that when I first started running, I had at the top of my list. Many of those things are still there, but as we continue to have conversation and dialogue with constituents, there are 3 things that continue to rise to the list of folks. folks are very concerned about healthcare, not sure what's going to happen in the area of healthcare, and I'm one who supports us moving forward towards a universal healthcare. I've been an advocate for it because I think that the ACA was a good step in the right direction. The fact is that at the time President Obama put on the table universal healthcare, but Democrats took it off because Democrats couldn't agree on moving forward.
And that's
with
too bad it didn't happen then, because it didn't do anything to address capping the limits, or people still had a hardship. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and that's the point. And so as much as I'm desiring for Democrats to hold the U.S. House and take back the Senate and win the presidency, if that happens, we have to use that moment to move forward the progressive legislation on universal health care.
Hey, I once read that you're a big proponent of universal pre-K.
Yep.
Why?
Well, because when we see folks who come into the door in kindergarten, the fact is that the data is very clear. That we have to start earlier, and that comes from actually cradle to career in terms of how we're supporting children moving forward. One of my first jobs out of college was working in Head Start program, and I saw directly firsthand what happens when you invest in early education and you prepare folks to move into the public school system. And we fail so many of our young people because we don't provide a universal pre-K that prepares everyone on an equitable footing when they start off. Only if you can afford it do you get the best pre-K. And the fact is that we have children who deserve better, and we have to start early.
Very quickly, I know that the plight of the homeless is meaning something to you too.
Yeah, the work that I do every day is working with the homeless in our community, and it really shapes my political understanding, how I approach policy through the lens of equity and justice, because the fact is that it's in that space that I come across the veteran who was dishonorably discharged from the military for behavioral health issues, and it was never addressed, and we work to move them through the system and get them support. It's there that I engage with the senior who has no family support and is only dependent on their Social Security check, and because of that, when they have had a life crisis, they've lost everything, and they showed up at our doorstep. And as even we're coming into contact with the family, the mom and the dad who's working every day, but because they're only making $7.25 an hour, they've been evicted from their home because it wasn't enough to keep them and their children there. And they show up with everything they have in black trash bags.
Can you help correct the situation as a congressman, or is it just something that has to be done on city council level or state legislative?
Well, we have structural and systemic issues, and the fact is I love the work I do, but it's a Band-Aid. Because we're serving as an emergency service to help folks, and we don't deal with the core structural issues of ensuring that we have pay equity for folks. $7.25 is not enough. We need to move the minimum wage up to at least $15 an hour. Yeah. When we look at Social Security and Social Security benefits for our seniors, we have to ensure that, one, the system is stable, but also that we're stepping up the compensation that we have for folks. And those are actions that get taken at the federal level.
I have a few seconds left. What about your background and experience will make you an effective congressman quickly?
I'm the only person who served both at the local and the state level. I understand how policy impacts folks on the ground. I understand how it impacts folks at the state level, and I'm the only person in this race who has that experience.
All right. Derwin, thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.
All right, you take care. You can visit Derwin's website at www.derwinmontgomery.com. That's it for this voter education edition of Triad Today. Our thanks to Todd Hall and Truliant Federal Credit Union for helping to make this special program possible. Please visit their website, truliantfcu.org. For all of us here, I'm Jim Longworth. Thanks for watching, and remember to vote on March 3rd.